Okay, testing the sound. Okay, testing. Welcome to Spectre Artcast number 3. It's September. Sorry, just testing the sound there. September 22nd, it's the first day of spring. I was actually debating whether or not I was going to stream tonight because it's my birthday weekend. My birthday was Friday, and was debating whether to do it or not, but I decided to go ahead and do it. It's funny, this weekend weather-wise was crazy because yesterday, Saturday, it was 90 degrees and sunny, and it's actually been sunny for quite a few weeks in a row here, and then today it dropped down to 70 and was rainy all day, so it's actually a nice change of pace, strangely. I am still working on Spectre Comics' first page of issue 7, but we're actually getting really close to finishing the page. I was working on this page through the week, and I've actually turned off the pencil sketch layer so it looks a little cleaner to remind you what the pencils looked like before we inked at all. I've brought that layer to the front so you can kind of see it, and again, really sketchy, and you can see that fall. It's the first day of fall, not spring. Sorry about that. Thank you, Carol near the city. But the first, the pencil layers here brought all the way to the top, and you can see what it looked like before we started inking. So I've turned off the pencil layer, and we're going to turn that off here and get back to a more final image. And I'm slowly working my way down the page. I've got these last 2 panels to kind of clean up, and I wanted to work on line weights because you can see that I finally got the captain drawn a little better here if you watched last week's stream, and I wanted to clean it up and work on the line weights. You can see this is all just one line weight, and I like line weights. I feel give a little bit of dimension to an otherwise flat drawing. And, you know, I go in, and my process is I go in and I start thickening the lines, and I kind of build it up in layers, and I use a really thin pen weight and start thickening the lines, but then I can, you know, shave away and start creating that 3-dimensional feel because the flat lines just keep everything flat. This is going back to using black and white comics. Obviously, if there was color here, it would take a lot less effort to get it to look 3-dimensional. And I do black and white comics because I really enjoy line work, like really good line work. And to give you a sample of what my comic page would look like if it was colored, I actually did a couple samples a couple years ago because I was trying to get my comic published. I was sending it to a publisher and trying to get an agent and, you know, helping me getting this published. But these pages, the way I color them, just take long. Just these, I did 4 pages. I did a 4-page spread, and I think this is from issue 2 of Spectre Comics. And you can see, you know, this is like a 2-page spread, and then this is the next page. These pages took me days and days and days to color, just the way I do, because I do shadows and highlights and, you know, different gradients, and I do a lot of things to, it's not just flat colors, and I think most people don't do that. Most people do, you know, shades and shadows and stuff. This took me a long time, and there's not even a ton of detail on this page, especially this second page. First page, I had a lot of outer space scenes as the ship is coming into the space station here. This is an outpost on an asteroid. The Spectre team is kind of making a stop to find some information out. There's a little cantina at this location, and they're going to try to get some information. Got my little bouncer here as they go into the cantina, and obviously I stole this from Star Wars, thinking of the cantina scene. So that's what this 2-page color spread looks like. Now I do enjoy coloring, and I enjoy coloring the comics. The problem is it just takes too long, and again, I've mentioned in other streams and other videos how long I've been working on this comic. But, you know, again, I plan someday to go back and finish and color these in, maybe once the entire book is done. But right now, I just can't, because it takes too long, and I've been working on this for way too long anyway. So I am cleaning up, and apparently I have some layers out of order, which is why I am getting some lines that aren't showing up here. But I just really like adding the line weights and tapering the lines, and it just makes it more stylized, and that's kind of my style. And I'll probably do a stream at some point about defining your style in your art. There is a lot of people have trouble figuring out what their style is. And for the longest time, I didn't know what mine was, or at least how to define it. But it's really just the way I draw that creates the style. And my style is, I think, heavy outlines. Everything's outlined. I've seen a lot of really good art that they don't have outlines on their characters. I mean, you look at these color drawings, and here's actually the cover to issue 5 of Spectre Comics. And you can see how I outline everything with textures, even when it doesn't make sense, because like if you look at this area here, it's got a highlight right on his head, but then you've got this thick black line. Because my comics are cartoony, and they're not, I just like everything being outlined. It, again, goes back to the idea of liking the line work a lot. And I'm kind of thinking back, like, how did I even get there? How did that become what my style was? I don't even know. I think it's just something that develops over time. It's not something you set out to do. It's just kind of something that happens. And for me, it's just always the way I've drawn. It's not that I saw anything or looked at anything. I think it comes from just drawing comics. Comics have, even simple comics that aren't colored with a lot of gradients and shadows, those are always just outlined in with black lines, even if they're colored in. So I kind of just took that, and that's just the way I've always drawn. So I really like the way the captain turned out here. I wanted him to be very emotive and angry, because in this scene, he's yelling, he's about to yell, and he's got this propensity to yell at all the subordinates. So that's what he's doing. And actually, I try to create humor out of it, because in the next couple of scenes, when you see him, he's going to yell at a group of the subordinates, and then he'll say, okay, I'm done with you, and I'll bring somebody else in so I can yell at them. So I try to create some humor out of it. Try to put a lot of detail in his mask, but you try not to put too much detail in, because what happens is you end up taking too long to draw a character. All of these Ori characters have these chest plates, and there's all these buttons and dials on them. So here's similar to this guy over here. The captain has these 2 plates, which are going to have similar buttons and dials. I look at the original design that I did, and I put a lot of detail in that. So I try not to do that, because when you have to draw characters over and over again, it becomes a lot to have to do that, to put all that detail in and have to do it every single time. I don't know how animators do it when they have characters that are highly detailed, like, or, real animators that actually draw 24 frames per second in their animations. I can't even imagine what that would be like. And then keeping it consistent, and then it having to be painted. Obviously, they have multiple people work on animated cartoons and films and stuff. So there's a lot of people doing it. And usually I think they assign a character to a certain artist, so that artist keeps that art consistent throughout the animation. As I did mention at the beginning, I am getting close. All of the components are here on this page. And again, in the last two panels, I've got the background and then the characters are on there. And obviously, and I was working on this character recently and just trying to get his body in. He's the last Ori soldier that's with the captain before he invites another person in to get yelled at. I did mention last stream that I jump around a lot when I'm drawing on a page, because I will work in a little section and then kind of jump around and add more detail to other areas. I don't even know why I do this. I don't draw in the same location every time, but whoops. When I was last working on this specific drawing right here, I actually drew the captain here, and then I enlarged it. And one of the nice things about Photoshop is that you can go ahead and just grab an image of the character. And I'll just do a little test here, but I grabbed the entire character. And again, I have the captain on the same layer in each panel, so I don't want to mess up anything else. But using the move tool, I can scale him up or down. And he originally was about that big, and then I scaled him up because he was too small on the page. So I wanted him to be bigger. And again, he's in the foreground, so he's in front of this Ori soldier over here. Even being in the foreground, he needed to look much larger than this character. He's not too far in the background, but he is... I think I moved something. You can see the lines are off now. Nice thing. I appreciate that they have undo. And now I'm just undoing until I can... I did assign the undo button to one of the buttons on my tablet. And for some reason, I think I moved it, but let me see. I think I put these on the wrong layer. The problem with having too many layers like I have now is that sometimes you forget to change layers when you draw the next thing. And I think I did that here because my screen layer, which is all white, I think I infilled the captain's mouth here, the black part with, yeah, see that? I accidentally did that, but I'll fix it. As I mentioned, it was my birthday Friday. I turned 51. I can't even believe I'm that old. When I turned 50, it was like a milestone. It was like, okay, I'm 50 now. But when I turned 51, now I can say I'm actually in my 50s. So I feel like it's all downhill from here. Hopefully that's not the case. When I did enlarge this, as I mentioned, when I scaled this up, I'm still drawing on the screen there, stupid. One way to quickly change layers in Photoshop is if you select the Move tool and you just tap on a layer, you can turn this feature off, like from these checkboxes down here. One way to switch the layer is to use the Move tool and just click on a layer. Problem is, if you accidentally click too hard, it can actually shift the layer, so you got to be careful. And I've done that a couple times, and then my backgrounds were offset. This white layer that's screening the star field from the foreground here, I actually moved it a bunch of times, and then I had to go back and clean it up. So I cleaned it up, and then I locked the layer. There's a layer here that's locked. Here's the layer, the white screen layer. That was an accident. I did not mean to move it, and I had to go back and clean it up. I did want to add a gradient in here. So when I did scale this up, as I mentioned earlier, as I started to say, it actually takes the pixels, which are really smooth like here, and it pixelates them like this. And I don't like that. So I'm trying to clean that up a little bit so that it looks like it's a smoother line, because this gray fuzz that's around here, I don't think it looks that good. And it keeps your lines not so sharp. Again, I am drawing with pixels here in Photoshop. This is not a vector program, but I can still get some pretty good lines. Now, I know it looks pixely when you're zoomed in like this, but when you zoom out, it actually looks really clean. You can kind of see this page. See, zoomed out, it doesn't look too bad. When you zoom way in, you can see the pixels. Like, they're really pixely. Smooth it out like that. And that's how I do it. And I know there's a better way to draw. I don't like dealing with vector lines because you select the entire thing. Maybe it's just something I need to learn, but as I'm getting closer to finishing this page, there is another step to do, and I'm going to do an example here, adding the word balloons. And I always add the word balloons last on the page. Now I plan ahead, again, going back to the pencil sketch layer, you can see I do plan where the balloons go when I'm sketching, because I want it to read properly. In other words, left to right, top to bottom. And the way I do word balloons is a technique I developed in Photoshop. I actually made a video about that, which is one of the most popular videos on my channel, strangely. It's still getting views to this day. There's actually two popular videos on my channel that are related to comics. One is how to create dialogue balloons in Photoshop easily. And the second one is how to create comic panels in Photoshop. That's actually one of the most popular videos on my channel and still getting views to this day. It's close to 13,000 views. Again, not a ton compared to some channels, but I didn't even think that many people were interested in that topic. I mean, how many people make comics? It doesn't feel like it's like a ton of people. And the people that do, they already know how to do this. But I created this technique of using a layer and then a stroke that keeps it simple. And I'm going to go put that video, I'm going to link that video in the description here if you want to check that video out. But you can search it on my channel and Spectre Comics, how to create comic panels, how to create word balloons in Photoshop, and it should come right up. But those are two very popular videos, which I did not expect. And I'm glad that I have videos like that. And they're really quick videos. I think both of them are like 5 minutes or less. But they get views to this day, which is shocking to me. And I'm actually glad about it, because I like to, show something that's kind of teaching. But anyway, to do an example of a word balloon, I keep the layer, and here it is. Here's word balloon. Here's an example here. Now, all the word balloons are on the same layer. Now, the text, for instance, the Ori Refine Me, this wanted to have like a dialog box. I'm actually going to make the start. Oh, I just moved it again. See that's what I was explaining. You accidentally touch it and it moves if you shift your hand while you're touching it. I'm going to reduce the opacity on it, and I'm going to lock the layer so I don't move it again. The reason I'm reducing the opacity is so I can actually see the text, because the text is going to come in black. Arial, the font I use is called Digital Strip, and I got that from blambot.com, which is a nice site if you want to download a digital font. It's actually a free font. It's one of their free ones, and I actually like it best. I would have purchased one if I found one that was better, but I actually really like Digital Strip, and I'm trying to remember how big. Well, actually, I'll just bring up the sample text, which again, I keep my template. I keep a word balloon. I keep these layers set, so as I go from page to page, it's already preset on the page. So let me see, where is the text? Here we go. So here's an example text, which shows up down here. So that's what the text comes in at. So I'm going to duplicate this layer, and then I can now bring that text to where I want it. And I still want to turn off this layer. Okay. So moving this text up here because that's where I want it. And then I'm just going to edit it to say what I want it to say, which is Ori Refinery, just describing the location. Okay. Now I'm going to go to the word balloon layer. And we're going to use the rectangular marquee to kind of outline this text, and then I'm just going to infill it. And now you can see that it comes in like that. So now it looks like that. The nice thing is that the stroke that's already around this on this layer comes in perfectly, and no matter how much, whatever shape I make, I can just, it always will have that stroke on it. So that's just part of the layer that's already preset. I'm just going to undo that. There we go. Okay. So that's kind of how I do the text. Now, word balloon is similar. I'm going to actually delete all these that are already on here. There's a couple. I think there's one down here. Oh, there's several. Okay. So as we focus in on the tower over here, and I'm going to make this star field here also, again, I just moved it again. Can't get out of that habit. Okay, so select it very gently, reduce the opacity temporarily, and then lock the layer so it doesn't move. Okay, now back to the text layer. I'm going to take this text here and I'm going to duplicate it. The reason I duplicate it instead of starting scratch is because it'll keep the settings, including the font size, and shifted the text when I selected it. Okay, so going to the layer, it keeps the font size. It's obviously this font is only in digital, is in uppercase. There's no lowercase version of this font. I'm going to duplicate the layer again. Now I can take that layer and move it. I'm going to move it over to where this dialog needs to go. which is over here. And this word balloon is actually going to overlap a couple of panels. So in this part of the dialogue, the Ori soldier is giving the captain some news. So with the font being like this, the word balloon is going to be an oval, and I need to modify the text. So first I'm going to locate it, and then I'm going to, what I want, because it's going to be in an oval, I want there to be a few words at the top and bottom and more words in the middle so that I can have an oval around it. So I have to just kind of maneuver the text a little bit so that more words show up in the middle. And I can stretch the boundaries of this so it's a little wider. So it looks like something like that. You can kind of see it. Let's see. Bring it up here so you can see. Now it's a little wider. Now it makes more sense to fit in an oval. Sometimes the words don't allow you to keep it perfect. Like I would still like it to be thinner at the top and wider on the second line, but because I've got two full words on the top and smaller words like a, new, and of are shorter words, the second line didn't stretch out as much as I would have liked. But it still works out, and I can put this text here. One of the things I hate about word balloons is that sometimes it covers up some cool detail, like this part of this ship here, this arm. The text is going to end up covering it a little bit, but I'm going to slide it right down here so that it's kind of overlapping the panel, the inset panel. And then I can go to the word balloon, and now I'm going to use the elliptical marquee and outline the dialogue here. And I can slide that around, and I think you can see that on the screen. It looks like it's visible. Okay, so now I'm going to infill that again on the word balloon layer, and now it fills in. I can still move it around. And then to direct the word balloon dialog to this window here, just going to use the polygonal lasso, and then I can add to that layer, to that dialog box. So now it's directional, and it looks like it's coming from inside. And now you can see that the word balloon is overlapping the panel, and I don't want that to happen. So I'm going to delete that part, and I'm going to delete it to align with the border of the panel. I can hit delete. Again, delete is one of my pre-programmed buttons on my tablet. So now I have a dialog balloon that goes into the throne room at the top of the tower. And those are the first two pieces of text on this page. Now I can go back and again, moved it again gently. And I'm going to change the opacity back to 100 so it's not opaque at all, or not transparent at all. And moved it again. Just don't have that touch, I guess. Unlock the layer. Relock the layer. And that's kind of how that looks. So yeah, I think, again, I usually do dialogue last, but I kind of wanted to do a demonstration here on this stream. And I wanted to talk a little bit more quickly. Like, my intention when I stream is usually to go for about 30 minutes unless I'm kind of getting in a groove or run out of things to talk about. But I wanted to talk about black and white comics versus color. And again, I talked about at the beginning really enjoying the line work and just appreciating good line work, which really is visible when you have black and white comics. I did mention also in other videos that I add gray tones just so it sets some of the areas apart, but it doesn't go too crazy with I use these 3 shades of gray. Everything on the page, anything that's gray is going to be a light, medium, or dark gray. I do that to keep it consistent from page to page, and I don't have 1,000 different shades of gray in the comic because it's very easy to forget the exact shade of gray you used. So I use those so I could just use the eyedropper to pick them. I've mentioned that before. But I really enjoy good quality line work. I was reading this comic called Hero Bear and the Kid, which is from artist Mike Kunkel. And he has a really good quality to his line work. And he does color, but it's subtle color, and it's not a lot. There's a lot more black and white drawing in his comics. He'll like emphasize a color like red, like the bear wears like a red shirt or has a red cape. And he doesn't color the whole thing, but he's got this really interesting quality to his line work, which looks like pencil sketches. Like, it's inked, but it looks like a pencil sketch, like as if you see the guidelines, like when you sketch. And I just really think that's cool. I should bring that up maybe next time. But I don't know, when I see really good line work, I really like it. It's really interesting to me. And I'm going to delete some of this line work here because I drew it on the wrong layer. So we're going to fix that by filling it in with white. Nope, that's not what I wanted to do. Screen layer. So this layer is meant to be a screen between the captain and the background. And I made a mistake, so I gotta fix it. Okay, so now it's back to white, and I can go back to the captain layer now and thicken the lines there. I think I just moved it again. Gentle touch. I have the 2 of the buttons on my tablet, the 2 top buttons, increase or decrease the pen width, so it's easy. I don't have to go down to the slider, and I can actually precisely choose which pixel my pen is going to be at. I don't use any fancy brush. I use the standard brush, the standard pencil brush that comes, just normal mode, nothing. There's a ton of different default brushes that come in here, but I just use the normal standard brush and just change the pixel size to what is needed. Click here to infill this to make it quicker. For some reason my button wasn't working, so here we go, now it's working. Just infill the black of the mouth, and I wanted to do a gradient on his lens, on his mask. You can see I use gradients in a couple places on this page. One is on the mask of the Ori soldiers, and then here on the captain's other lens. And for some reason I moved this. Make sure it's correct. Okay, that's in its own layer. So we'll do one here. The way I do this is I just select the black pen, and then I get the polygonal marquee out again. Now you can't see my layers. It's kind of behind where I'm at right here. But I've got 3 layers. I've got the Captain Gorgo layer, which is where I'm drawing him. I've got the gradient layer, which is just below him, and then there's a screen layer, which is below that. The screen layer is just the white background that separates the captain, the character, from my background drawing. So so that way I don't have to like cut lines. It just lets me overlap things. In case I need to shift something, I don't have to redraw it. That's why I do it that way. On the gradient layer, I'm going to select the polygonal marquee. I'm going to go ahead around the area that I want to put the gradient in, and then I'm going to select the gradient tool. Now you can see down here there's a lot of different ones. In the case of a round or a curved lens, I'm going to use the radial gradient, and I'm going to reverse it so that there's a hot spot instead of it. If you don't reverse it, it starts dark in the middle and gets lighter as you go out. If you reverse it, you get a hot spot, like a white spot, and then it has a gradient outward. And then you just have to figure out where the light hits the lens. So wherever I click first, so I'm going to tap here, and then I'm going to drag. And the further I drag, the more stretched out the gradient is. So if I want it tight, it'll just create a hot spot with a black lens. That's not what I want. So I'm going to undo that. Try it again. If I pull further, it stretches the gradient out a little more. So I think I want to be kind of somewhere in between the first one and the second one. So we're going to try that again. I'm going to put the point here, and then I'm going to come to about here. That's a little too dark. See, it's for me, this is a trial and error thing, like whatever looks the best. That looks pretty good. I feel something like this really adds to the 3-dimensionality of the drawing, and it allows it to look like a real curved surface. I mean, if you look at the masks of the Ori, this really looks curved because it looks like there's a hot spot and the light is bending around. The entire mask is obviously a reflective material, and you can do this and it really looks good. And actually zoomed way out, look at the way that the lens looks on the captain's mask. It's really cool. I really like the way that turned out. Anyway, I'm getting to about 40 minutes and I'm getting ready to wrap up. I know I didn't draw a lot today, but a lot of this was demonstration. So if you watched, I appreciate you being here. And if you're watching on a replay, thank you for watching. And we'll see you next time. I do live streams. I'm trying to do them every Sunday at around 9 o'clock Central Time. So if you want to join, I will be here next Sunday, same time. I'll have more topics to talk about, and I'll walk through more of the drawing. There is a possibility I will work on this page through the week, and I will be done, and we'll be starting page 2, which will be exciting. And thanks for watching. Like the video, subscribe to my channel. We'll see you next time. Have a great day.